This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Friday, May 3rd. Thank you so much for joining us for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. We begin this hour with Democrats fuming after Attorney General William Barr refused to testify before the House Judicial Committee Thursday. Barr made the decision after learning committee attorneys would be questioning him along with congressional members. When Barr didn't show, Congressman Steve Cohen brought in a ceramic chicken, a bucket of chicken from KFC. It drew laughs, but the committee chairman threatens to hold Barr in contempt.
We cannot permit him or anybody in the administration to dictate the manner in which we function.
And senior Washington correspondent Jennifer Wishon joins us now with more on this story. What a show, Jennifer. Have we learned what have we learned this week from the interactions between congressional Democrats and the Trump administration?
Well, Ephraim, I think we've learned a few things. One, this conflict that we're going to see play out between now and the presidential election. One, the Trump administration says it's over. The Mueller report is out. No collusion, no obstruction, it's over. For Democrats, this is a starting point, and they're going to be they're going through this report, and they see this as the starting point for the investigations that they want to hold. A few other things, Ephraim. We've seen that Attorney General William Barr is exactly who members of Congress thought he was. He is an adept lawyer who can handle these complex legal questions, and he is squarely in President Trump's corner. We have also seen that for Democrats, these are complex legal, conversations, and it's hard for them to sometimes get their points across in these hearings, 5 minutes at a time. So this is going to slog on, and it ain't going to be pretty going forward.
No, it is ugly even as we speak. So who else do Democrats want to question in relation to the Mueller report?
Well, like I said, they are looking at this report as kind of a starting point, and they want to use some of the key witnesses that Mueller used in his investigation. One of those is former White House counsel Dan McGahn. They really want him to come in and testify before their committees, but the president is saying, look, these folks already gave hours of testimony to Mueller. Congress is not going to find anything that Mueller didn't, and the president says he's going to use his power of executive privilege to block these subpoenas.
All right, real quick, there's information about methods the FBI used in the 2016 examination of Russia's meddling with the election. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, we know the New York Times is reporting that the FBI sent an investigator undercover using the name of Ezra Turk, apparently an attractive blonde lady working undercover as a research assistant to see what the Trump administration, or if the Trump administration was coordinating with Russia. She was trying to get close to George Papadopoulos. She didn't find anything, but the Trump administration is going to use this as fuel to say, haha, look, the FBI was spying on my campaign in 2016.
All right, Jennifer Wishon, thank you so much for that report this hour.
Thank you.
President Donald Trump had a lot to say at a Rose Garden ceremony Thursday, marking this year's National Day of Prayer. He spoke of the power of prayer while also announcing practical steps to protect religious freedom.
Every citizen has the absolute right to live according to the teachings of their faith and the convictions of their heart. This is the bedrock of American life. To protect this heritage, my administration has strongly defended religious liberty.
White House correspondent Ben Kennedy attended some of the prayer events there and has this report. Ben?
President Trump called out evil and hateful acts against religious communities around the world. He condemned violence on places of worship and even vowed to defend religious liberty. It's your breath. The National Day of Prayer kicked off in the Rose Garden with a call for Americans to follow the Golden Rule. This year's theme, Love One Another, a time to put aside politics for prayer.
As we unite on this day of prayer, we renew our resolve to protect communities of faith and to ensure that all people and all of our people can live and pray and worship in peace.
President Trump said prayer is needed now more than ever in the wake of attacks on places of worship.
I should have been dead by now.
Rabbi Yisrael Goldstein spoke out after getting hurt during a shooting at a synagogue near San Diego.
Mr. President, when you called me, I was at home weeping. You were the first person who began my healing.
The commander-in-chief then prayed for healing in Venezuela, where tensions have reached a boiling point. More protests are expected this week as opposition leader Juan Guaido calls for the overthrow of dictator Nicolas Maduro.
The brutal repression of the Venezuelan people must end.
People would pray knowing that we desperately need God in our generation.
Jack, we're here in D.C. Who should we pray for? Should we pray for President Trump or lawmakers?
We should pray. The Bible says we should pray for all of those who are in authority. And so that's a long prayer list, isn't it? And we should start with our president and our vice presidents, who are so welcoming of people of faith.
Pastor Jack Graham is on the President's Faith Advisory Council. He told me they met Wednesday about mobilizing Christians to help with the humanitarian crisis at the border and tasking churches help revitalize cities through economic development.
These are urgent times, and we need to pray, not just easy does it prayers, but we need to pray with passion and compassion.
President Trump also showcased new faith-based protections for healthcare workers, as well as faith-based adoptions. He also touted how federal employees can now take paid time off to observe religious holidays. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, the White House.
Focus on the Family is gearing up to broadcast live ultrasounds on monitors and screens across Times Square this weekend. It launched a Live from New York in response to New York's latest abortion law. The legislation allows abortion of viable babies right up until the moment of birth. But the ministry reports that 3 companies have denied its request to buy space on Times Square's massive billboards. Jim Daly, president of Focus on the Family, told CBN News why he thinks some companies are afraid to lease Times Square's Jumbotron screens to the ministry.
There is a double standard. They try to obfuscate a woman's right to see their child in an ultrasound in the clinics, and they're also trying to drown out our ability to show a baby in the womb in Times Square.
We head to Israel now, where a lot is happening in remembrance of Holocaust Remembrance Day observations. Our Julie Stahl joins us from the Middle East Bureau. So, Julie, tell us more about this solemn day for Jews in Israel.
You know, it is exactly that, a solemn day. Israel, stands at attention for 2 minutes. They have a siren that sounds, and actually this year, right as before the siren sounded to bring people to a halt, they also had sirens in southern Israel with having a little trouble here, with sirens in Israel saying that rockets were coming into Israel from Hamas in the south. So this year had a lot of different things to it. You know, there's also in Israel, they talk about it on the radio a lot. There was one man who told the story of when he came, when he was born, he was a month old, and his Jewish parents gave him to a Polish family so that he would survive. And he didn't know until he was 36 years old and had become a Catholic priest that he was actually Jewish. And so it's very complicated, the whole society, the whole thing of the Holocaust remembrance. You have tens of thousands, maybe a couple 100,000 survivors here still, but there's this challenge of how to carry on the memory of the Holocaust to the coming generations, because probably the youngest Holocaust survivors we have now are maybe 75, nearly 75 years old, and those are the youngest ones. So as they die, how are you going to carry that message forth? There was a really, really clever idea, I thought, on Instagram. I think anyone can follow it, called Eva's Story. And what someone did was they actually did a production of Instagram stories of what if a 13-year-old had an Instagram account and how she would have explained the Holocaust at the time. So people are trying to find ways to carry that memory forth. Also, I think this year, particularly, it came against the backdrop of this rise in anti-Semitism. And President Reuven Rivlin, Israel's president, he made the point that you can't say, oh, I love Israel, but I hate the Jews, or, well, I hate Israel, but, I love the Jews. He said they come together. They're one and the same.
Indeed. Israel had elections a few weeks ago. Has Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu formed his government yet?
No, he has not formed his government yet. They did swear in the Knesset, that would be like the parliament here, this past week. But he's having trouble getting forming the coalition with some members. They don't want to give other members what they want in forming the coalition. It's a bit of a complex system. He's pretty confident that he'll be able to do it, but he did say this week he might not meet the original time frame, which would be in about 2 weeks. But he has another 2 weeks after that to would have another 2 weeks after that extension to form the government.
All right, we'll be watching that for sure. Before we let you go, what's on Jerusalem Dateline this week?
So on Jerusalem Dateline this week, obviously we have a lot about the Holocaust Remembrance. You'll hear the siren and see how people, freeze in their tracks. It's really every year. It makes me cry every year. Anyway, we'll talk more about the anti-Semitism, the growing anti-Semitism. There was a report from the Anti-Defamation League that said anti-Semitic attacks in the United States had doubled in 2018. And another report from Tel Aviv University it's noting the spike in attacks all around the world, particularly in the United States and in Europe, where you would not expect them. That has also, created quite a stir here with people saying, don't you see the writing on the wall? Get out and come home. Now you have Israel. Before, during World War II, you didn't have Israel to come to, but now you have Israel to come to. We asked Israelis, though, and others in our show, do they have hope for the future? I could give you a sneak preview. They said yes, but anyway, that's what's on our show this week.
Excellent. Very timely in light of the fact that we just had another synagogue shooting attack in California as well. Thank you so much, Julie. We really appreciate it. You can catch Jerusalem Dateline, by the way, tonight on the CBN News Channel. It will begin at 9:30 Eastern this evening. Coming up, the White House wants to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. See why one Muslim activist is supporting the president. Stay with us.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I Wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
It's been nearly 18 years since Islamic jihadists attacked America on September 11th. Since then, some estimate Muslim extremists have carried out thousands of attacks. In today's World Beat episode, George Thomas takes a closer look at the numbers and what can be done to stem the tide.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to World Beat, where we show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it. As Sri Lankan authorities worry about the potential of more suicide attacks by the group behind the Easter Sunday bombings, one newspaper has published an exhaustive study of all the Islamic terror attacks around the world since 9/11. According to the German newspaper Die Welt, Islamic extremists have carried out 31,222 attacks in the past 18 years. Those attacks have killed 146,811 people around the world. Most of the victims have been Muslim. The newspaper analyzed all the information gathered by the Global Terrorism Database at the University of Maryland to come up with the numbers of attacks and lives lost. The list concludes with the recent attacks in Sri Lanka that killed at least 253 people and injured more than 500 when suicide bombers targeted churches and hotels on the island nation. Joining me to discuss the impact of those sobering numbers is Muhammad Tawhidi. He's a third-generation Iranian-born Australian Muslim and author of The Tragedy of Islam, Admissions of a Muslim Imam. Mr. Tawhidi, thank you so much for coming on the show. The research shows the geography of Islamist terror stretches today from Europe to the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. How do we combat the scourge of radical Islamic terrorism?
Greetings and thank you very much for having me on. Firstly, in order for us to combat and tackle this wave of terrorism, we need to understand that the definition of terrorism that we use is different from that of the jihadists. The jihadists do not believe that what they are doing is wrong. They believe it is noble to blow themselves up, and therefore there is a clash in understanding in what exactly is going on. Firstly, they do not need an actual government or a geographic location to establish a caliphate. They target areas with weak intelligence and governments that are paying attention to other issues such as political correctness, and they infiltrate and drive their agenda in these areas.
For decades, Saudi Arabia, as you know, has been at the forefront of spreading and funding a radical form of Islam known as Wahhabism. How important is it to put pressure on the royal house of Saud to put an end to this form of extreme Islam?
Well, this can be argued. The Wahhabi movement, currently we want to be realistic, currently is pushed by the extremist imams, which Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has put most of them in prison, and many of them have fled the country and are now in exile. So Mohammed bin Salman, honestly, even though we can criticize many of his actions, many of his doings and beliefs, but at the end of the day, him as an individual, he is combating the extremists. And that shows that we are heading in the right direction, but maybe it's not enough. We need to do more. So the Saudi royal household, we can't put pressure on them. They are not religious clerics. They're not like the Ayatollahs in Iran. The Ayatollahs in Iran are religious clerics. We can blame them for the terrorism that comes out of their country. But Saudi Arabia, they are kings. They're not religious clerics. We can't blame them for the religious activities, but we can sure tell them to crack down on the extremists within their nation. So it's a matter of being realistic and tackling extremism with a strategy, not just generalizing.
The Trump administration this week is thinking about designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Is this a good idea?
Yes, and I made a tweet this very morning saying that if this happens, then it will shake the entire Islamist empire. The Muslim Brotherhood is the most organized extremist terrorist organization on this planet, with banks, institutes, politicians. It has inroads into every parliament you can think of, and the best example is what's happening in the American Congress and what is happening through organizations such as CARE that have been designated as a terrorist organization. So yes, I do support it, and more power to President Trump.
Finally, you call yourself an imam of peace and someone who wants to reform Islam. You've taken a lot of heat from your fellow Muslims. Can Islam, sir, be reformed?
No, it cannot be reformed. I do not call myself a Muslim Islamic reformer. I call myself a Muslim reformer, which means I believe in reforming Muslim societies. I don't believe in reforming the religion. If it's not broken, then you can't fix it. Islamic reformation is man-made. Muslims will never leave the Quran in order to follow a man-made version. So instead, I focus on the Muslim mentality and liberating the Muslim mindset, working on communities and individuals.
And some of that, from your perspective, is about joining Christian Christians, Jews, when they are persecuted for their faith, you as a Muslim believer stand shoulder to shoulder with your other co-religionists who suffer for their faith around the world.
Of course, we are all brothers in humanity before brothers in faith. We're all human beings. And if I don't side with you against ISIS that wants to kill both of us, then what is my purpose in life?
Pleasure to have you on the broadcast. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Well, folks, that is it for today's edition of World Beat. Until next time, goodbye and God bless you. Now back to Newswatch.
And still ahead here on Newswatch, a look ahead at a new movie out called Ugly Dolls and its message of hope and other lessons for children as well as adults. Stay with us.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
You know, I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
Millsburg Falls man.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I wills of God, the latest teaching from Pat Robertson.
Singers Kelly Clarkson and Pitbull have teamed up to bring life to a new animated film in theaters this weekend. It's called Ugly Dolls, but it's oh so beautiful.
Good morning, Uglyville!
Hello, gorgeous. Let's check out how you look today.
In the movie Ugly Dolls, a perfectly adorable, misshapen, pink and furry doll named Moxie is waiting and believing. Each day, she wakes up in her little town of Uglyville and dances among the town's other oddball residents with a song on her fuzzy lips. They're all pretty happy in this brightly decorated square peg in a round hole town. But Moxie dreams of some place that none of them have ever seen.
Guys, what if this is the way to the big world?
A big outside world where dolls like her can be matched with a loving human child. Then one day, Moxie and a few of her misfit friends find a path through the mountainside that nestles next to Uglyville, and they find something quite amazing.
What's perfection?
A place where pretty, perfect dolls are groomed to go to that wonderful world full of children.
Only pretty dolls will meet their perfect human match.
You're an engineer/model. You're a boy doll/model.
Moxie knew it existed. Now she just needs to figure out how to make herself as perfect as all these beautiful dolls. This colorful musical isn't always so perfect itself. There are some tacked-on, find-your-own-truth bits, and a dash of button eye-roll humor. But like the pink, purpose-driven hero at its core, this movie's heart is warm, fuzzy, and endearing. It delivers some sweet moments and solid messages about embracing your imperfections and being companionate and loving. So I'll give Ugly Dolls a 4.5 out of 5 for family friendliness. For more on this film or anything else at your theater, visit us at pluggedin.com. Plugging you into the movies, I'm Cheryl Wilhelmy for Focus on the Family's Plugged In Movie Review.
Justin Bieber is making headlines for a faith-filled post about fear. We've got the story next.
As the world watches from the outside,
it's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
Justin Bieber is opening up to his fans about how God's love is changing his life. He took to Instagram on Thursday and posted an encouraging message to his followers. He began, "Fight for what you love and who you love. Don't let fear and anxiety win. God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind." He went on to share that he has struggled in forgiving people who have betrayed him and knowing that he was really loved by God. But he wrote that God is changing his heart every single day. Time now for your Friday Faithful, and I want to leave you with this message as we wrap up the work week and begin the weekend. Remember, you are blessed to be a blessing. Take a moment to bless someone today. Remember, God's blessings flow to you, but don't let them stop there. Allow them to flow through you and to touch the lives of those around you. With that word, I encourage you to make today a fabulous Friday. That is going to do it for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always get more on the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. You can also watch CBN News programs anytime throughout the day on the CBN News channel. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Have a fabulous Friday and a wonderful weekend. We'll see you back here Monday.